Hi, Russ Miller, Off-Grid Creationist here. Hey, I'm picking some acorns up off the ground under the gamble oak trees outside of our cabin here in the crater in northern Arizona. And so I'll pick these up. They've only been on the ground a day or two. And what I'll do is take them inside, put them in a bowl of water. The ones that float, I take and throw over the fence for the deer. Probably indicates they have a worm or a weevil or some sort of insect in them. Probably good protein, but I don't think we really want to go there at this point in time. Because these are relatively fresh, the shells are still soft, so I'll just take a heavy bladed knife and carefully cut the shell and remove the nut inside. Once you cut this open, you're going to get the nut out. As you can see, they're pretty good size. I do not recommend trying to eat these raw because of the tannic acid in them. And once we've chopped them up into pea-sized pieces, we're ready to remove that acid. You can boil them in water, let it simmer for 5 minutes. The water's going to turn brown at first. Pour that off. You do that about 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 times. The water will be relatively clear, and then they're ready and prepared to be eaten. Once you do that, you can eat them raw at that point in time, or it's probably better to roast them lightly with some salt, or you can grind them into a flour. I would suggest mixing them with another type of flour. You can make cookies, pancakes, waffles, etc. But they do have a lot of protein, carbohydrates, and fats in them that are good for you. It's a good food source if you ever need to eat acorns. But don't eat them raw, and if you're allergic to nuts, leave them alone. Acorns, nuts, wheat, and flour, that's not what I wanted to talk about.
Well, this morning we destroyed the fairy tale of Darwinian evolution, but this afternoon we're going to take on its foundation. In fact, it's the foundation of Darwinism, naturalism, humanism, and all the compromised positions inundating the church today. So let's take it out. I'm talking about millions of years beliefs. You know, Jesus said that Moses wrote of me. So it was important to Jesus what Moses had to say. In fact, through the inspiration of God, Moses tells us in the first 5 words of the Bible, in the beginning, God created. You can't believe those first 5 words. There's really not much reason to read any further than that. This is why you see Satan's attack focused on creation, has been for almost 200 years now. So when did God create? In the beginning. I get a lot of weird emails because people are so messed up on these ideas, but one of the biggest questions scoffers will use to undermine a Christian's faith, and well-meaning people will ask this question too, is, hey, we live in a world full of death and suffering. Come on, where is your Christian God? A scoffer one time said to me, my aunt's dying of cancer, 3 kids were killed in a car accident in that intersection last night. Come on, where's your loving Christian God? Grow up. And if you don't know how to biblically answer that question, your faith can be definitely undermined, as are almost 90% of Christian kids now by the age of 20. Hey, if you leave here with nothing else today, know how to answer this question biblically. You know, 99% of adult Christians can't biblically answer this question. So how do we live in a world full of death and suffering if we have a loving God? Well, the answer is right there in the 1st and the 3rd chapters of the book of Genesis in what I call the cost. The answer is simply this. God didn't give us a world the way it is today full of death and suffering. God gave us a perfect creation. Well, what in the world happened to it? Adam's original sin. The original sin was Satan's pride, but it was Adam's original sin that brought on the curse that allowed death and suffering to enter. And that's why we live in a world full of death today, yet we have a loving God. There's the biblical answer right there. It's pretty simple, isn't it? 99% of Christians don't know how to answer that question. Steve Jobs was an outspoken atheist. He went to church when he was a kid, but he asked his pastor one day, how do we have a loving God in a world full of death? And the guy said, well, you just have to have faith. Well, that didn't answer the question, and he lost his faith. So there's the biblical answer right there. In fact, we're told in 1 Corinthians that when Jesus returns, the last enemy that he shall destroy is death. Death is an enemy to God's creation. It's not the tool by which he made his creation. That original sin that brought in death is much more important from a Christian standpoint. Think about it. Adam walked in the garden with God. Well, why don't we walk in the garden with God? That original sin separated us from God, requiring a Redeemer to suffer and die on a cross to redeem us with him for eternity. And my friends, that's the foundation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I call it the cost. Creation, original sin, separation, and the cross. Well, if you put death before Adam, that undermines everything. That's what we're going to talk about. When Jesus returns, He's going to give us a new heaven and a new earth where there will be no more death, no more pain, no more sorrow, where the wolf will dwell with the lamb and the lion will eat straw like the ox. We're going to go back to that perfect creation, or even better yet again.
And my friends, that is what I wanted to talk about. This is my book, Cost: Creation, Original Sin, Separation, and the Cross, the Need for Redemption. It covers the top 10 old earth beliefs, the top 10 evil fruit coming from these beliefs, which include Darwinian evolution, so it covers the top 10 Darwinian beliefs. It also covers the top 10 reasons to believe in the global flood and the Word of God. It covers a lot of science, but it's not a science book. It's an evangelistic tool. Let's make an impact while we have a chance.